Hello, my name is Gabby and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here then welcome to my channel, and today's video is going to be some fall book recommendations. I do just want to start this video off by saying that a lot of the books that we're going to be talking about today do contain dark themes that can definitely be triggering, so the content warnings for all of them will be linked down below in the description. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. First up is going to be Blood Like Magic by Liselle Sambury. This follows our main character who is given the task to sacrifice her first love in order to save her family's magic during her calling, which is a trial that every witch must pass in order to obtain their powers. This book, has witches, but it also has an amazing main character who we get to see really evolve over the course of the book. There are really cute and really fun relationships and also really complex relationships, and all of those things can be true depending on the relationship. And also really good banter between the characters and just a lot of love all around, especially between the family members. And although I loved all of the witchy stuff that was going on in this book is also set in the future. There's a lot of techie stuff. And I do think that the setting is interesting and unique. I just didn't fully connect with it all of the time. And I also did predict a major part of the ending earlier than I would have liked. But otherwise, I had a really great time with this book. The sequel is currently in my October TBR, and I'm looking forward to just being with these characters again. It's been a while since I've read this, I've missed them, and it should be a good time. Next up is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Our main character receives a letter from her cousin begging someone to save her from a mysterious doom, so she goes to the High Place, which is a house in the distant Mexican countryside, where she finds her cousin's new, menacing, and alluring husband. I love this book. It's one of my favorite books that I've ever read. And just like Blood Like Magic, a lot of why I enjoyed this book so much came down to our main character, who I adored. The horror elements were just as creepy and just as scary as promised. The atmosphere was gothic and spooky, and a spooky, mysterious house is just one of my favorite things in the world to read about. Which is thanks to this book, and also This Poison Heart by Caitlin Bayron, which I read before this one. And that book was in last year's recommendations, but it was, in fact, wonderful. There were so many layers to this book, and this is one that does have a lot of hype around it, which can definitely be dangerous. But it lived up to all of it for me, and I just cannot wait to read more by this author. Next up is Mooncakes by Suzanne Walker. Mooncakes follows our main character, who is a witch who works in her grandmother's bookstore and investigates the supernatural. One of her investigations unexpectedly leads her to her werewolf childhood crush, who is battling a horse demon in the woods. Left without any options and being pursued by dark forces, they turn to her for help. Okay, so we have a graphic novel here, which on that note, the art style, incredible. But also very cozy, bookish fall fantasy that does get spooky from time to time. And it has really amazing, honestly kind of beautiful depictions of magic, but other than visually, the story also does contain a really adorable main couple and also side characters. I do think that this could have been a little bit slower paced. I wish it dove into things a little bit deeper, and not every joke worked for me. But what did work, really worked, and I'm so sad that I read this book during this summer, but hopefully I get a chance to reread it at some point in the fall, because I just want and need for that to happen one day. Next up is The Lesbianist Guide to Catholic School by Sonora Reyes. This follows our main character who was outed by her crush and ex-best friend at her previous school. And now at her new Catholic school, she has no intentions of coming out or falling in love. However, that is easier said than done, as the only openly queer girl at her school is annoyingly perfect. But if word gets back to her mom, she could face much worse than rejection. Like Mexican Gothic, this was one of my favorite books that I read last year. And it does heavily feature an academia setting, which is why I associate it with the fall, other than just me reading it in October, which is also a factor here. I got incredibly invested in this story. The characters are so lovable and they go through so much. And where they end up by the end of this book just felt so amazing. I said in my review of this book that this story does have a lot of dark stuff going on, but they also do know how to celebrate. And those moments of celebration, and also just a lot of the characters in general, are what made me fall in love with this book. And also contributed to the emotional roller coaster that this book took me on. This isn't a perfect book. I do think that it occasionally contradicted itself with some of its messages, but it's definitely one that has a special place in my heart nonetheless. And the final book recommendation in this video is going to be the Marrow Thieves by Cherie Dimaline. This takes place in the world where most of humanity has been destroyed by global warming and the indigenous people of North America are being hunted and harvested for their bone marrow, as it contains the key to resolving why the rest of the population can't dream. This follows our main character as he and his companion struggle to run and survive with the goal of making it to the north. This is a book that I've talked about very recently on this channel for my found family book recommendations video because the found family element of this book was just one of my favorite things. But other than that, the premise itself was also incredibly interesting. And this story was also very apocalypsy and has some of those classic apocalypse plot points, which is why it's here today. Because I feel like they did those things really well, so that combined with the interesting concept made this out to be a really solid read. It's not a long read either, but I feel like it really makes the most out of what it has, and I ended up feeling attached to what is a pretty large cast of characters. Even if I didn't always like them, and I'm talking specifically to our main character with that one. This is another one that I'm hoping to read the sequel to very soon, and I'm excited for that to be actually happening. Okay, so that is all that I have for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and answer the question that'll be around here if you want to do that, and hopefully I will see you here next time. Bye!